Hey everybody, and welcome to Born Again to Live. I think yesterday we forgot to mention that this is Born Again to Live, the podcast. And we do have a podcast page on Facebook. It's Born Again to Live, the podcast.
Yes.
And as a suggestion to our new follower, Oscar,
Yes.
I am trying to figure out ways to post more on there. Because
Okay.
I'm not real good at posting on there. But like Monday, I sent out, we talked about the ball thing I built. So I put the picture of it on our Facebook page.
Cool.
And Oscar said it would be really cool if we could post every episode on there
Yeah.
so that people could link to it, but then they could comment underneath or whatever. And I was like, that is really cool. Yeah, it ain't happening.
You're not a good poster here.
I'm not a good one for that.
We all know I'm
Social-
not.
I'm
So
a social media manager for.
wouldn't that be great? Anybody want to volunteer out there? That would be amazing.
You just link everyone to there and then put what we talked about, the description or something, and then allow people to comment under it.
Yeah.
Because we have so many followers that we need that.
Do we, Eric?
I don't know.
We don't even know.
I
But
know we've gained one.
yay. Who would that be?
It's my stone for Friday. I gotta wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta
Woo,
wait.
you're making
Yeah.
me wait.
Pretty cool story, actually.
You
So
gained
gotta wait.
one. I love it. But yeah, here we are, smack dab in the hump day of Holy Week, Eric, and I believe we're getting back to the cross.
Yes.
Even though the cross hasn't technically happened yet.
Not yet, but we still have a lot of the depth and width and severity of what happened on the cross that I still want to explore. I think last year we did a really good job. And if anybody wants a really in-depth dive into what Holy Week is and each day of the Holy Week, we did that last year.
Yes, we did.
But this year, I don't know. Let's not beat that dead horse.
It's never a dead horse, Eric. Now I'm going to go back and look at what episodes those are, but you continue talking.
So I think this year, I don't know, God's been speaking to me more about the lesser looked at parts of Holy Week, the symbols, the signs, the little things. We were just talking about a Friday conversation that we're going to have in between episodes. We were talking about how Habakkuk looks at Easter. And
Right.
we're going to have this conversation on Friday, folks, because it's real.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But it also, I don't know, it's the stuff that you don't think about that it pertains to us now, that you read the Holy Week stuff and you're like, oh, that's a great story. No, it's not just a story.
Right.
It's real. It's active. It's living. That's why he raised from the dead. He's still alive. We still have life with him. So we're born again to live, not born again to die.
Yes.
I don't want to think that, man, I give my life to God and I die and I'm done on the cross, because there has to be a tomb after. But we got to understand what happened with the cross and what happened on that cross before we can even get to the tomb.
Yeah, that's true.
And we wouldn't have Resurrection Sunday without the tomb or the cross,
Yes.
because you don't die and come back to life if you don't die. So we got to have the instrument of death, symbol of life.
Yeah. It is. It's so cool that God took what was meant for evil and turned it to good, and he will do that in your life as well. Anything that you because like that is the thing. Like I mean, as a child, as an early believer, like again, I didn't realize that the cross, it wasn't just what Jesus died on. A lot of people died on a cross.
I had this thought actually on that trip up to State College. And in West Virginia, there's a lot of mountaintops that you'll see these windmills on.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way up there was one, and it looked just like a West Virginia mountain. Like there were so many windmills on this thing. And I got to thinking, I bet that's what the crosses looked like in Rome.
Yeah, just up on the hill.
Because they entered into a city, they had them on the outskirts. Like, I bet there would have been 10, 15. And we always symbolize that Jesus had 3.
Yes.
But what if there was 15?
Yeah.
What if that day 15 people were to die on the cross? Does it make it more impactful for you to look at that and say, wow, 15 other people? And that one thief spoke up and said, remember me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we always think of the conversation as 2 other thieves. But what if there was 13 other thieves, 14 other thieves, 20 other thieves, and they're all yelling, what's so special about this man in the middle?
Right. Yeah.
What's so special about this guy? Oh, he's nobody. We all deserve this. And then all of a sudden that moment happens and they're like, oh, okay. And that guy dies, the world shakes, the lightning, the thunder, the ground quaking, the dead coming back to life. And everybody in that city at that moment just like, oh, this one's different. But that was such a common thing that nobody thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Oh my goodness. And I can only imagine just Jesus being in a sea of suffering people, because that's why he came. Like, we might not be on a cross, but we are dying for our transgressions, for our sins, for just what the devil has done to this world. And I don't know about you, Eric, but the more I live this life, the more I just look around and I'm like, you really do get that just visceral gut sense, like, this is not how any of this was meant to be. The brokenness, the discouragement, the hopelessness, like, this is not how life was meant to be at all. And, we get glimpses, like in those worship nights and on a beautiful sunny day where we're just staring up at the the budding trees and listening to the birds. Like, we get glimpses of God's glory, but most of the time it's through that sort of that dim mirror, right? We are just not seeing the full picture, and we're not supposed to just yet, huh? All right, so I did do a little research while you were talking.
Our Holy Week was what episodes?
So it kind of started at episode 58, and then it went through 65. So we started talking, I think, a little bit prior to Holy Week, but then we basically went all the way through Good Friday. And then we kind of talked about the road to Emmaus after that. Yeah. But I remember our discussion was sort of like, we don't need to get that much into Resurrection Sunday because pretty much everyone's going to hear that talk on Sunday. So we sort of skipped that part a little bit. But so for you guys that want sort of an in-depth look at what Holy Week was all about, because Jesus came into Jerusalem, a triumphant king in a way. Everyone thought he was going to be the conquering king, and his followers, and not even his followers, but people that just heard of his works and his miracles, and they all came out to greet him. And it was just this fever pitch where everyone just thought this is the day that everything changes. And so to do that on Sunday, to see him dying on the cross on Friday, and then Sunday to be raised again, like, it's a lot. It's just a crazy wild ride. So we covered that last season, episode 58 through 65. So, okay, let's get back to this instrument of torture, Eric.
Yes, the cross, which was spoke about in prophecy 400 to 800 years before, and then had to be brought out, created. But as we talked on Monday about the cross, I think there's a depth to the cross that people don't understand, and what happened in the exchange. And that's why, thinking about the shirt that I wear all the time, I was like, we got to talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So if you didn't listen, go back to Monday. We talk about the first part of the cross. But we're going to pick up today with Galatians 2:20.
Yep. Okay, it says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me.
So my first thought on this...
Emphasis mine, by the way. I emphasize this.
Yes. But the thought that I really was having with this is, we view the spectation or the spectator part of the cross as Jesus died. But when you flip it and say, I died in that cross too, that's where the personal saving comes in.
Yeah.
And most people view the cross and say, Jesus died there. Stop and say, I died there.
I died there because, our sinful nature died up there.
Or I killed him.
That's true too.
I mean, he now lives in me and I in him. So when you take and think about what Jesus did, he didn't just come down here to die and save you. He came to redeem you. He came to make you new. And so there's a personal aspect to it. I always talk about saving someone from the train tracks. Well, if you stand at a distance and yell at them to get off the tracks, idiot, it doesn't work because the train may be too loud, or the people may be yelling, train's coming. Who knows? They won't hear you. But if you reach out your hand and you pull that person off of the tracks, then they know you saved them.
Yes.
And that was what Jesus did. He didn't come here to condemn us and yell at us for what we're doing wrong. He just came to pull us off the tracks and say, listen, I got a better way.
Yes.
And so this verse brings it to the personal aspect of, I was on that cross with him. I may not have been born yet, but I was on that cross with him.
Yeah, Eric, because the thing is, it is one thing to be saved. It is one thing to pull someone off the track, but then what happens next? And, I'm going back to like the resurrection of Lazarus, which happened right before Jesus came back, right? That was one of his last miracles. That's what caused the frenzy.
That's what got him over all worked up.
Yeah, because they're just like, okay, like he has the power to. So I think they're in their heads, they're thinking he's going to raise all these old prophets and Elijah, and he's going to bring back all these, Moses, and he's going to raise them all from the dead like he did Lazarus. I think that's what they're thinking. And then they're going to conquer all of the enemies of Israel, not just the Romans, but then the Israelites will then rule the world, right? Like, I think that's what like a lot of these people were thinking. But to your point, Eric, like he didn't just save us. He brought us back to that new life. And like, that is what this podcast is all about. Because, so, I talk about this to the kids all the time. I'm like, okay, so yeah, Jesus raised Lazarus, but guess what? He had to die again. Like he had to die again because he's human. No one escapes this. But the point is, what did he do with that time that he was given again? What did that time look like? If it were me and I remember walking out of a grave in grave clothes when everyone thought they were, I can only imagine, like, you want to talk about a moment in your life where you've never been more loved. Can you imagine, Eric, being at your own funeral, sitting up in your coffin and being like, I wasn't dead, I was just asleep, right?
Yeah.
Like just the looks. Well, I mean, people would either be crying, screaming and yelling running out of the church, or they would just be completely in awe and overjoyed and a whole mix of emotions, I'm sure. But like, then what do you do with that time? Like, I would think you would spend every last breath you had telling everyone about who raised you from the dead, right? And so, yeah, when we die on that cross with Jesus and he gives us that new life, what are we going to do with it? That is what Born Again to Live is all about. And it's something that we should be very sort of sober-minded about this week. Like, am I living that new life that God intended me to live? And if not, why? And what are those stumbling blocks? Like, what is keeping me from living that Habakkuk life that says, I mean, it's our new thing, right?
Yeah.
Last year was about the church is not a building. This year it is about Habakkuk. But like, what is going to cause me to live that life that says, nothing about my life looks perfect. I don't understand 90% of what's going on right now, but I have a God worthy of worship. Like, what is it going to take? And we need to do a deep dive, and we need to get in prayer. We need to get in God's word. We need to seek, because we're not going to get these answers just going through life willy-nilly. Like, Jesus said, seek and you will find. So as I'm seeking these answers, as I'm seeking this peace, as I'm seeking joy, I'm seeking these things in my born again new life. That's what we need to be doing.
All right. So my thoughts on some more on that verse. At the end of it, it talks about faith.
Yes.
I don't remember. I can't remember now. I've changed my screen and I forgot to.
I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me.
There you go. All right. So faith. We all know faith is knowing that or believing that something happened without seeing.
Right.
So I did not see Jesus die on the cross. But the first step in faith, I believe that the cross is real, is knowing that I was a sinner.
Yes.
I believe and I have faith that I was a terrible sinner and I put Jesus on that cross. But then I have faith to know that Jesus is who he was and is, and that he died on that cross and came back to life so I could have life in him.
Yes.
Faith is that part of that we have to believe that Jesus was who he was and is who he is, but we are who we are and that we killed him.
Yeah.
And that we put him on that cross and that I helped kill him by being who I was, but that he has the power to redeem me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole lot of faith that goes into the cross and who you are through the cross, and that you die on the cross, but yet you live from the cross.
All right, I'm going to up your faith, and I'm going to throw in a love here because I'm looking at this last part of this verse as well, and it says, I live by faith in the Son of God, comma, who loved me and gave himself for me. But, it's interesting, like, the "and" to me is kind of like, in this paragraph, or this sentence anyway, it's sort of like saying apples and oranges, right? Like, it's one thing and it's another thing, and they're just kind of together. But, like, let's be clear, like, who loved me and gave himself for me. No. It needs to say who loved me. Like, the reason he gave himself for me is because he loved me. He loved me first. And, I keep going back to that Corinthians, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. It all started with him loving you, me, all of his oppressors, all of us that sent him to that death on the cross. He loved us first and gave himself for us. And that's it. That is amazing, because we were so undeserving of that act.
We are. So, all right, let's get one more verse.
Okay.
Let's do the
Colossians?
Yeah.
Is that what we're at? Okay.
1:14.
Yes. And it says, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Wait, can I go back a little further on that one?
Yeah.
What's it doing to me? Let's see. Sorry, let me get back to Colossians. I clearly did not. Help. Okay, now I got it. So it says, for he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins.
Yeah.
Well, and they're talking about God the Father, right?
Yeah, God the Father has delivered us. I got the New King James, and it says, he has delivered us from both the power of the darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood and his forgiveness of sin.
See, this is why I don't read the New King James. That's okay. I want to go back to mine.
Okay.
It's a Bible beatdown. No, I'm going to go back to mine because I'm going to throw in the Habakkuk part of this as well. Of course. Start in verse 12. And giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. I just love everything about that phrase. But for he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, forgiveness of sins. So on the other side of that darkened day where Jesus is bleeding out on a cross, there is this giving joyful thanks to the Father. There is that worship right along with the wrestling and the not understanding, and it's all right there.
And Jesus is king of his kingdom.
Yeah.
And that we have redemption through his blood. That's hard for people to realize, hard for people to understand. That part of it is just, how can death bring life?
Yes.
So many people, that's where they get stuck in the crux, or whatever Amy calls crux.
The sticky wick.
The sticky wick of Christianity is, how does death bring life? And it's all that redemption, all that Jesus is making all things new.
Yeah.
And in his kingdom, that's how things work. We can't understand it because we have a one-sided death mind.
Yes.
But in Jesus's world and in his kingdom, you have to die to get life. You have to be born again. You have to go into that cocoon and come out that beautiful butterfly on the other side. But you have to enter. You have to shed the old life and say, I am repenting of my sins. I leave them on the cross with Jesus, and I'm going to walk out that tomb on the other side and go, all right, now how's life supposed to work?
Yes.
As a redeemed, quality individual who can still wrestle and embrace, but I am completely shedding my old life on that cross and saying, yes, the redemption of Jesus's blood on the cross allowed me to live.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has to be death, Eric, because death is so final to die to your sinful self. It's not enough to be like, okay, I'm just going to take off the sin, the shame, the guilt, all the stuff that Jesus died for us to let go of. Anything other than death isn't enough. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to take these things off and put them in my junk drawer, or just like maybe throw them in my, my backpack. Like, no, it has to completely die in order for us to live that way. It really does. There is no other way when you dissect this,
So in my Holy Week preparation, right, I had this really awesome idea of what's my go-to to get inspiration. It's Billy Graham.
Okay, yes.
I love me some Billy Graham. So I seriously type in, like, go to YouTube, type in Billy Graham Holy Week.
Okay.
The first thing comes up is just what I've clicked on, because I'm like, God, you're going to use this to work in my favor. And it was Billy Graham talking about the power of what Jesus did, right? And awesome to hear him talk about it, the power of the gospel. But he said a line in there that, did you know God can forget only one thing? And it's our sin.
Yeah.
So he talks about how God doesn't forget to send the rain. God doesn't forget to do anything with the universe. And there's a line in the Bible he talks about where God holds the universe together.
Mm-hmm.
If he takes his hands off the universe, it will implode or explode. One of the two. But he never forgets anything that we need, anything that happens in the universe. He never forgets to keep spinning everything into perfect rotations, in the perfect time and everything else. But it says if you ask for forgiveness from your sin, he forgets them.
Or I think probably the King James would say he remembers it no more. Like that's the word in Scripture.
But he forgets your sin.
Yeah.
The only thing God can forget is the redemption that Jesus said, all right, I got to get rid of this sin. And he says, okay, I don't remember that one anymore.
Yes.
And to think about that, like that was my preparation for Holy Week, is that he only forgets one thing in the entire universe. And it's the sin if you ask him to.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That is pretty awesome. Like Billy Graham, if you listen to him enough, man, you don't need us.
Well, you definitely don't need us, but I mean, I do. I love that, like Billy Graham's words and his, his sermons and just all of it. It lives on in eternity because he's speaking God's word, and God's word is eternal. And I love that he is in the grave, but he's alive with Jesus, and he's still speaking to you, Eric, and he still speaks to others. That is the resurrection life right there. Like, that's so cool.
Bunny trail real quick, and then we'll end this episode because we're getting long with time. But
is it an Easter bunny trail?
No, it's not an Easter bunny trail. It's a Billy Graham bunny trail.
Do tell.
So I heard this story that him and another pastor, I can't even remember, R.C.
Sproul,
was having a debate, and they are both on opposite ends of this issue with Christianity. And some guy interviewed RC and said, listen, when you get to heaven, will you see Billy Graham there? And he says, no. And it was on this issue. And he's like, why not? And he goes, well, I believe that God has an order to how close you get to the throne. And I'm going to be so far back, and Billy Graham's going to be too close for me to see him.
That's so sweet.
That's the power of the redemption, though. We can argue on points all day long, but when we get to heaven, how close to the throne are you going to be? And he said, listen, I'm a humble human. I know I'm going to be so far back, but Billy Graham should be right in the front.
I never thought about it that way until and you just talked about coming from a concert, right? Like, I never thought about it, but like, you could be way out in the nosebleeds, and then the people that got those rewards that God promised us, they're right up in the front talking to him, having breakfast with him.
But that was there. He was like, I don't care if I'm right on this issue or not.
Yeah.
Billy Graham should be so much closer to the front than I am. And that's the respect of God did it for all of us.
Yes, he did. He absolutely did. And listeners, wherever you are in your walk, and maybe you haven't even started, maybe you're still not even sure if God exists, but guys, it's just our prayer that you would just look deeply, like just seek him, and draw near to him, and he will draw near to you. That's a promise that he gives us. And so you don't need to live this life in defeat, in worry, in anxiety, in shame and guilt, all the things that the devil just wants to use to beat you down. We are born again. We died to self. We are given a new life. And let's just start living it this Holy Week.
Yep.
How about today? Today's a great day to start.
Today is a great day. Can we come back tomorrow with part 3 of the cross?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
I'm born again.